What's going on, everybody? This is Blair Johnson, and welcome to an episode of Badass Records Podcast, where we chat one-on-one, long-form-ish style about you, what you're into, and some of your favorite music. I'm stoked to share that this week's guest is Brock Wilbur, who is the editor-in-chief of The Pitch. He is at Brock Wilbur with a U. All one word, on Instagram. His 2020 book Postal can be found on Amazon. Check out his work at authory.com/Brock Wilbur. And please support The Pitch. If you're unfamiliar, it's KC's longtime independent publication in both print and on the web. thepitchkc.com is their site, and give them a follow on Instagram if you're not following them already, because the content there is always fantastic and clean and appealing. And so many thanks to Brock and his team of dozens and dozens of folks that keep this thing alive in a time where many of its counterparts have long since thrown in the towel. But great stuff. The Pitch, thanks to Brock for the time. New episodes of this podcast air Thursdays. Find it where you stream or download your music and podcasts. It's viewable over on YouTube. The website is badassrecordspodcast.com. I am available at badassrecordspodcast@gmail.com if you felt like doing an episode yourself or knew a good candidate. Appreciate you stopping by as always. Hope you enjoy the show. But I appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I think this Sharpie is our reminder to ask you to sign the wall when we're done.
Cool.
So I think this will wind up being episode 145 of Badass Records Podcast. Brock Wilbur, editor-in-chief of The Pitch.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for being here. Nice to meet you. So you're a journalist for The Pitch, but you're also editor-in-chief, and you have a book, Postal, from 2020, available on Amazon, etc., right?
Yes.
So writer and comedian.
Yeah.
Writer stuff was born in your mind when?
So I went to film school at Northwestern. When I got done there, are we recording?
Yeah.
Went to film school at Northwestern. When I got done there, I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue the film dream and writing for movies and TV and doing some music supervision, and all of these things that were my dream goals. Turned out sort of sucked ass in practice.
Really?
In one very particular case, wound up seeing a movie that I'd written the screenplay for, and it had been 6 years since I'd written the screenplay before there was a premiere night. And I remember sitting in the theater looking up and watching it and being like, I wouldn't write a word of this today. I actively hate it. And I was like, I need something that's got a faster feedback system. And I was like, I'm finally going to do stand-up, because if I have an idea, I can go out that night to a room full of strangers, share that idea, and if it sucks shit, I can not waste 6 years of everybody's time on it. Like, the movie was fine for those people, but for me, I was like, I kind of don't want my name on that. So, getting into stand-up turned out really well, and it turned into a lot of touring. And in the process of touring, I wound up starting to do a lot of journalism, because I was like, look, I'm out here on the road. I get to Cincinnati, and I've got all day before I work at like 8 p.m. I can either go to local museums or get blackout drunk or both. What if I started just like interviewing people and doing stuff? And that sort of fell into a journalism career. Met my wife through a publication that we both worked at. At some point, we decided we actually for our honeymoon came to Kansas City, a place she'd never been before. And a day or two in, she was like, "Everything here is great and doesn't cost anything. What if we left Los Angeles to move here?" Like, started saying it as like a goof. And then around 4 or 5 months later, we were packing up our boxes to move here because we were like, journalism we can do anywhere. We can
Yeah.
do it remotely. And happened to get out here around the same time as the former editor in chief of the Pitch was moving on, and the owners of the Pitch were like, I think you showed up here at the right time to do this. And I was like, well, I grew up in central Kansas. Kansas City was always the big city. Got a pretty strong foundation here, and local journalism matters a lot more and does a lot more for people than national journalism seems to do. My favorite thing in doing that was that, like, I'd write a story and people would send death threats or angry things on
Oh,
social
geez.
media, and I was always like, this is just a lunatic somewhere in their basement, maybe not even in this country, who gives a shit. And then now I do local journalism, and when somebody's very mad at me, I'm like, well, that's Kevin, and we share a grocery store, and we know where we each other live, and like, all right, we're much more active in each other's lives, and this is a lot more on the ground. So, yeah, I don't know. The pros and cons are both pretty strong, but absolutely adore doing it. So, coming just started my 5th year here running the Pitch. So
Nice.
that's I don't know. I just love this goddamn city so much, and it every single day I get to show up and have no idea what we will be talking about that day, and the city never ceases to deliver with new bizarre surprises. So.
Yeah. So you report to a spot every day. People are expecting to see your face, or
Yeah, we've got a newsroom on Broadway across from Post Coffee. We get together in the morning and we're like, let's take a look at the lay of the land.
right?
And it's always just like, and this thing happened. Like, it's stunning to me that last week we finally banned celebratory gunfire, shooting guns in the air. Like, it's one of those things like finally banning conversion therapy last year. That it's very Missouri in this like, wait, we didn't do that like 80 years ago. Yeah, we're doing it now. Get into it now. Like,
Wow.
and there was a hard fight to win it. I don't know. It feels like next week I'll find out we've just now banned fishing in local fountains or something. Just like, all right, we're both the future and the past all in
Right.
one. What a beautiful dichotomy.
So journalism, there's some skill to be learned, but at the end of the day, you still have to put together a well-written piece. When did you first think, you know what, I have the chops inherently to do that? How old were you when that thought happened?
The writing came easy. It's sort of everything in my through line here, from screenplays and television to stand up to journalism. It all shares one skill set, and that skill set is storytelling.
Yeah.
And it is explicitly storytelling for someone that isn't you about someone that isn't you. It's about being able to take something that's happened, make it interesting and digestible to strangers of all walks of life. And so I don't know. It's sort of been the lifelong skill set, is like, I think this is interesting. How do I tell other people about this in a way that they'll be interested or angry or happy? So yeah, a lot of what I do is especially locally, is finding stories that no one else is going to tell, and then taking the gigantic platform we have and helping people tell those stories in the best way they can. So yeah, I'm not sure. Imposter syndrome's a delightful thing. I'm not sure if I ever knew I had the chops, but
Mm.
my entire life I've been like, let's gather around the fire and let me weave a tale for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And yeah, it's served me well.
So I'm assuming there was some fandom of stand-up along your path. Do you have current favorites or folks that you first watched as a young person?
I think I'd always thought stand up was sort of ridiculous and hackney, and like, I don't know, growing up watching like Tim Allen's Tool Time and like Jeff Foxworthy and I I don't know, I could always appreciate blue collar comedy touring stuff, and I was like, this is a fun art form, but like, it's it's just being a clown. And then I saw the Comedians of Comedy documentary with Patton Oswalt, Brian Posehn, Maria Bamford, Zach Galifianakis, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do this thing where you just travel with your best friends and you get weird every night for a group of weirdos that are really into your sort of thing. And yeah, that was sort of it. Paul F. Tompkins and his very specific brand of like, what if I told 12-minute stories and it wasn't set up punchline, punchline, punchline. That was a big thing early in my career that it served me for better or for worse, was that like everybody else at the Comedy Store was using their 5 minutes to do the same 5 minutes they'd been working out for 12 years. And every single night that I went up, I did a brand new 5 to 7 minutes.
Really?
I especially because like early in your career, you're like asking a lot of friends to come out to like bring your shows and stuff. And I was like, if Dana's going to come see me for the third time in a month and is going to pay cover charge at the Comedy Store and a 2-drink minimum and stuff to make sure I can make it to stage, I'll make sure I'm always getting better and never making them sit through the same jokes twice. So I got to do a lot of prolific stuff, but I also had a very different approach than what the audience was expecting there. I wasn't like, boy, do I hate my wife. And
Those airplane bathrooms.
it is amazing, and then it is amazing to like tour the country after being like, I think that some of this scene in Los Angeles is stuck in the past, and then be in Cincinnati and be like, no, this is several decades behind.
Right,
and
right.
the some of the social justice-y stuff. I'm losing you on this
Yeah.
one. So
Where and when did you first get up on stage?
Comedy Store Monday night.
Was it an open mic?
No, it was a full ass show, and I got bumped by Patrice O'Neill.
Okay.
So I then had to follow Patrice
Oh, wow.
as my first one. And then the next time I went up, got bumped by Bobby Lee. So I had to follow Bobby Lee. And I was just like, wait, so every time I'm gonna prep myself emotionally for like, I'm going after another comic, I've seen his stuff, I'm all set to go. And then what if somebody wildly famous came in and did 20 minutes, and then this asshole went up and was like, I'm tall and white and from the Midwest, here's my thoughts on things.
Were you terrified? I mean, to get up your first time, or did you have courage?
I imposter syndrome in action again. Like I never really had the, like, I always like do a weird backstage like fidgeting and like just like maybe I shouldn't go up sort of thing. But in the moment, I don't know, it's pretty easy. I don't think I was ever a crowd work guy, but it was very easy to read rooms and interact with people. And the best possible thing that would happen from the worst possible thing is that you bomb and you're like, let's unpack why no one thought that was funny.
Yeah, so have you bombed?
Oh yeah. I've done I did thousands of shows. Like I've bombed all over the country, and every one of them you turn it into a learning experience.
Sure.
But even within bombing, I don't think I ever had a set that I left stage and people were like, I'm disappointed in that. I'm mad to have wasted my time on that. Always managed to pivot into something pretty okay. So
Do you still get up?
when I moved here, it was a chance to really double down and focus on a lot of much more important things, a lot more things on the ground. And frankly, once you get married, the idea of staying out crazy late every night and being paid in drink tickets and just getting hammered with the same group of idiots every night to do 7 to 10 minutes on stage, it's some of the shine wore off of it, and I was just like, right, so adulthood's here, and I still love and appreciate everything, and we've got a great scene locally. I just have too much else on the plate. And
Sure.
For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to do that on top of 8 other things.
Hey,
So.
I mean, I hear that. So you decide to come to KC from LA. Did you already know that the pitch gig was available? How did that all come to fruition?
Had no idea. I'd been here actually about a year before that thing opened up. The pitch actually, when I was growing up, I was in middle school as a kid in Salina, Kansas. My dad worked for a company out of Olathe, and he was fired under weird hyper-religious circumstances by a nut job. And I actually didn't know this until I was working at the Pitch for a year or two, but at the time, the only publication that would share his story about this awful person was the Pitch at the time. Their investigative reporter was like, that's a really important story to tell. And places like the Star and other Kansas papers were like, we don't really understand what we do here. We'd be ruffling too many feathers. So I don't know. That was basically what I knew of the Pitch. I was like, I remember there was someone in town that like stood up for our family 2 decades ago. And I was like, oh, I'm there now. And we will continue to do the same thing. I will be that for another kid somewhere.
Wow. And so 5 years in, and I mean, how many total folks work for, you have regular staffers and regular writers and photographers, and then you have some folks that freelance. I mean, what's the structure look like inside?
We got about on and off 7 to 10 regular people in the office, full timers, folks doing that sort of thing. Our freelance list is somewhere in like a range of 200 people.
Dang.
That will occasionally take on stories. There's about 20 that do very regular stuff for us, and then there's a lot of people that I'm like, hey, this thing came up. I know somebody who's really good at talking about this, and I will give them a ring and be like, I think this could use your touch. It's a lot about learning who has a great voice and knowledge set for something, so that like
Sure.
you're not sending somebody out who has to learn everything from the bottom up, even though that happens plenty too. But I don't know. It's one of those things that to be a truly local alt publication is to be like, all right, we are hiring only local people, and we are hiring as many of them as we can. Like, there's plenty of stories here that like don't need my voice to share them. There are a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons that list, even at 200, is still probably limited, because the number of people that we've worked with over the years that we've been like, your version of this is the best version of this. Let's help work with you and teach you more about journalism writing to get you to the point where you can be the one to share this, and then we'll work together on that sort of thing. So the more I can have people working with us that aren't in the parts of town that normally get covered by traditional media, the more people that can come to us with perspectives that are outsidery or aren't going to get the sort of platform they deserve, the more I think that we do a better reflection of the city. And that's sort of what I'm here to do. No one really needs my opinions on things. The people that are actively living through really difficult situations or really complicated things are actively being aggressively kept down. Those are the stories that it's important to get out there. So
who's responsible for the social media presence?
Sarah Sipple from our team
Okay.
is sort of our community lead. She does a tremendous job with our Instagram and reaching out to people and going places. She's her own kind of reporter that is just got her thumb on the pulse of everything here.
Well, growing up here and getting into music at a pretty young age, by the time I'm in high school, I believe it was Thursdays that it would come out. And it would run to Seventh Heaven or Westport or whatever. And I mean, it was like my favorite day of the week because, I'm not intellectual or intelligent or anything at that time, but I do want to see who's playing where. And so I would flip to the back to see who's playing all the bars in Lawrence and what's the local live music scene like. And that was part of my fabric for a very long time.
I would like to think that at no point in the last 45 years did this paper require somebody to be an intellectual to access it.
But I mean, but there's plenty of, my point is that it was a thick publication back then, and there was lots of good writing and lots of good journalism that I just would never really pay much mind to.
Gotcha.
And then just like 2 weeks ago, I was picking my daughter up, and we were driving past the roastery, and she was like, "Well, can I get a thing?" Yeah, go ahead. Take your friend in there. And they went in. I gave them money. They're coming out, and there's a stand there. There's a pit, and I'm like, I've driven past this 4,000 times in the last, and I rolled down the window and I was like, hey, open that and see it. And sure, the music issue was in there.
Perfect.
And I was like, God damn, this is crazy. But I ask about the social media piece because yeah, I knew at a young age that I loved writing. I ended up getting a master's in creative writing from UMKC, which it doesn't make you necessarily employable in that field, but which it is what it is. But I love clean copy wherever it is. And I mean, the Pitch's Instagram is immaculately clean and credits folks. And
It's a beautiful thing. Sarah's simply the best at what she does.
it's so good. I mean, I love that it's still around. I mean, I moved, my folks had a subscription to the Star and the Times when I was real small. I moved to Colorado for a handful of years and moved back in 2000. And I felt like getting my subscription to the Star was like my first actual real step into the world of adulthood.
Gotcha.
And I just loved it. I would totally look forward to Monday Poznansky and Whitlock columns to read about the debacle that the Chiefs were at the time. And
Right.
And over the years, I mean, I feel like my subscription was $20, and at some point, it crested $100, and I was like, I can't do this. And so I called, and they were like, what if we do $49.99? And I was like, you can slash the price in half. I was so upset, but I held on to that subscription for so long because print is dying, and I want to continue to support it as long as I can. So I say all that to say this: it's remarkable that there are still paper copies available for folks to get.
I've long appreciated that print media is a dying media, and like it's almost impossible to get out. The last couple of years have turned it into something even more. If you take a look at the Pitch magazine, it's printed on a very particular size, on very glossy, all color paper. And starting in pandemic, when supply chains started getting disrupted, the paper that we print on from then onward has been either it's accessible or no one knows where there is anywhere in the world. And so each time we send a magazine to print, we don't know what it will cost until the day we send it in.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And so there have been a couple of times that we thought we were going to have to just like miss the month, which we've never done under my watch. But like, it's been like, yeah, it's just triple this month. No, we can find some in like China maybe and import it. But like, it'll have tariffs. But like, there's none in America right now. And you're just like, okay, this is just part of it, I guess. So yeah.
So you get the actual paper delivered to you from wherever it comes, and then in-house you print, or
it goes to a printing press. We don't have that whole setup inside of our building.
Okay,
but,
and then somebody has to go get it and then deliver it to all the places.
We got a couple of guys with some vans. They drive to 500 boxes around the metro and Lawrence and drop them all off in a period of about 36 hours at the start of every month. So yeah, a lot of people that care about this in a lot of ways that don't charge what they would charge a bigger publication for this. But even with that, it's just like, these are impossible numbers. This doesn't make sense. There's a lot about what we do that as a business model is unsustainable and doesn't make any sense, but we're all here and we all love doing it, and we think it's important, and we think that having a non-paywalled site, having free magazines, especially in parts of the city where there are news deserts, and especially for people that don't have a cell phone and internet access, like this is maybe the only way you're getting news in the city, if you're that person. And like, that's important. If that goes away, nothing's coming to take its place. So
Right.
yeah, that
So is
feels
there
important.
the business model?
Hmm.
Is there pressure from above being like, this is not, the profitability is not what and so then you need to make change, or do you just get to keep rolling? I mean, does that
We
make
have no
sense?
money machine. There's no pressure from the top. The pressure is from within, from all of us who are like, I think everyone there would like to make slightly more than the stupidest small amount of money, but like just keeping the lights on costs what it costs. So I don't know. We'd like to turn the corner at some point, and we're always getting a little better at what we do. If the world can stop giving us weird knocks out of here and there, I think things will get better. But
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Weird knocks from the world.
oh, there's just always like the paper thing is
Oh
one
yeah,
example of
yeah.
it. Just like you'll wind up with costs out of nowhere that you're like, oh, that's a weird 8 grand that no one thought we were going to spend this month. I guess there's that. I don't know.
Sure.
Sometimes you wind up with a story that you're like, okay, we need to work with outside legal on this before it can run, and so then you're paying lawyer hours, and you're like, right, this is telling this one takes a lot more than okay. Well, it's important to tell. Let's get it right. This costs less than a lawsuit would, but
Right.
we'll make sure we do it right. So
So outside looking in, 12 months out of the year, this is roughly what the pitch looks like operationally. Now, does that change when you hit best of season, best of pitch KC season?
I mean, we still publish something like 40 to 60 stories online every single week. Our output there, a wildly different thing than the evergreen nature of the magazine stuff. We're doing song premieres every Friday. We have all these in-depth things with people coming through town, concert photos, breaking political stuff, important news stories, very dry things about city council meetings and stuff that are wildly important, but like not the sexiest subject.
Right.
So like it's the news machine never stops. It doesn't stop for holidays. It doesn't stop during best of season. The best of magazine is always a great time when that hits. But
Does your job look different while you're trying to get that out?
oh no, my job stays. I have absolutely nothing to do with best of. That's decided on by the people of the city via voting. That it is 1000% their input, start to finish. I do not put my finger on the scale. I don't even vote in best of. That's
Okay.
how disconnected
Okay.
I am. So that thing, it's run elsewhere. That's we've got a great team that overlooks all that. But sort of when it comes time to put that magazine together, I'm like, give me the list of winners. Let's do this.
Right.
Which always makes it very funny when like somebody starts writing in and they're like, I don't understand why you didn't pick us as best band. And I'm like, well, no one, not a single person nominated you 2 months ago. This wasn't my call.
Right. Right.
Don't be mad at me. I'm
Right.
begging you.
Funny, I had a similar experience last year when that cropped up. I, you know, went in and nominated myself, and my sister might have done it too. And then a sales gal reached out and was like, "Do you want to advertise?" And I was like, "Well, I think so." And so I did, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, okay, this must be a pretty significant means for getting a few bucks and getting some folks to subscribe. You got to put your email address in. So fascinating. I only looked at it from readership standpoint prior to that, and then that whole thing went down, and I was like, so I'm the best band, that.
Right.
And then it was really holidays last year, December, where I felt like there was a real big push on the pitch Instagram to sort of spotlight a lot of really cool shit, and maybe kind of in look back style, because it was the end of the year.
Oh yeah, okay.
I mean, it was, and everybody gets credited. People that write the thing and take the pictures, and there's never a paywall. And I was like, oh, this is it's my opinion changed again. Like, if this is, I mean, everybody likes that issue and looks forward to that issue, and if this is a way to help the pitch grow, then God bless them and keep doing it.
It helps out, but it's equally a big help to everybody that then is getting their name out in that period. Like it's one of those, like there's very little we do that winds up being wildly profitable for us. There's a lot that we do that does the same thing as everything else we do, which is platforming and getting it out there. But yeah, at the end of the day, everything we do boils down to sort of being in love with this city. And sometimes that's very confusing to people because when we're cheerleading things, they're very excited about that. And when we're very critical of things, they're like, why are you so angry or so mean or so opinionated on something? Like, well, that's what love is too. It's wanting this city to be better, and it's wanting to go out of your way to spotlight people. I mean, it's very funny. You'll spotlight a nonprofit, or you'll spotlight a restaurant, and somebody somewhere will write in and be like, can't believe you wrote about them and not me. And I was like, well, we've been around for 45 years. I will try to get to everyone by 55 years. But yeah, it's the best part of the job is I'm never going to run out of people that we're excited to talk to. So,
right.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, we got a couple people here working full time, and we are covering a lot more than a lot of our sister publications in other cities. We do a once yearly meeting with the other alts around the country.
Oh, really?
It is very strange to have people come up to you that you don't know and have them be like, we read you all the time and we rip off a lot of your ideas.
Oh, shit.
And like, which is great because in alt world, it's all just individual city papers. So none of us are in competition with each other. So it's great to get together and be like, here's things that worked for us. If you guys want to steal them, fine. It's not invading our turf. So it's nice to have an industry full of people that are all on the same team and are so supportive of each other. Well, and are all equally in dire straits at most of the time.
Yeah. Well, I remember, what's Denver's Westward?
Yeah.
When I was out there and came across that, I was like, oh, I wonder if every city has their pitch. And then I liked it because I like that, but I never have thumbed through one in any other city and not thought, pitch knockoff, which is obviously just wild hometown bias. But
Denver's is one of the best in the world, and if I could have the pop advertising money that they do to support their gigantic staff, I'd be so happy. Nice. I'd be so happy.
Well, for all of those pitfalls and unexpected things and expenses and folks that love what they do and love the city, I just, mad praise to all of you. Who knows, what the world looks like tomorrow, but I, for one, am glad that you guys do what you do, and this thing is still alive and kicking. So, for whatever it's worth, thanks for what everybody does in that building.
Thank you for reading it. That's the only reason it matters. If no one read it, then we're just some assholes on the internet who publish a collection of photos once a month. So
right. So if one Googles you, not too far down, there's a story called on livethroughthis.org. Is it okay to talk about that, or should we skip it?
Deep dive. Sure. Yeah. I didn't know it was on the first page of the Google result. I need to Google myself, see what's happening there. Yeah, sure thing.
So essentially, you found yourself in a spot where you didn't want to be here anymore. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I one of several real good attempts to cash out early.
Several.
Yeah.
And have you been able to put a finger on the pulse of what has gotten you to those moments?
A lot of stuff in my early 20s. I don't know. It has not gotten better across the board for people. I know the pressures of being interconnected via social media at all times now, and I worry about children raised on YouTube and stuff. There's a lot that I know is different and harder in its own way, but yeah, I just went through a period where the world was simply too much, and uh, I don't know. It was wildly helpful to me to have come so close to not being here, to find a way to really appreciate every minute that I am here, and nothing like having that kind of breakdown in your early 20s to have a good push to be a man in his 20s that's starting therapy, that starts talking to a psychiatrist, that gets things evaluated and medicated. It's one of those things that made it very easy to make part of my life's mission to just get every man in my life started on therapy. I'm like, I generationally, there's just so much, like, there's so many things that when I found out, especially on like the medical side of things, once I got my bipolar diagnosis, a lot of things in my life changed really, really quickly
For the better?
for the better.
Okay.
Much, much better. Like it was a surprise to realize that not everyone had ghosts in their brain talking to them, and you're like, oh, there's a pill I can take, and that part of things goes away. Or just how I reacted emotionally to things. And as soon as I'd been sort of clear of that for a year, it's one of those things that I would see in my father and my grandfather, and
Oh,
I was
shit.
like, if this had been destigmatized decades ago, people would know what ran in their families. So many people would have had a better, easier time, but also kids would come up knowing, like, I come from a long line of this kind of thing, and it would be really helpful to be able to skip some of those close calls by knowing, okay, there's a pretty good chance that I could have this thing running in me, but also, like, there ain't anybody out there that's not suffering from depression on some level, and just the healthy ability to be able to go out and one of the reasons I moved here was to work for Jason Kander's election, and when he was running for mayor of the city, and I got the call the morning he was dropping out because even though he could have just stayed in it and had a dream
Sorry,
job,
what year was this?
this was 2018,
He dropped
2019.
out? I don't remember that.
Yeah, he was running for mayor, and everybody else, like, he wasn't running for mayor. There were like 10 people in the race. He announced he was running for mayor. Almost everybody else dropped out that night. They're like, Jason Kander is gonna win. And a couple of weeks before the election, when it was very clear he could just like do nothing and be elected, he came out one morning and he was like, hey, I have been dealing with suicidal ideations
No way.
because I have PTSD from my time in Afghanistan, and I came back and I just kept doing things and kept plowing forward, and I've never taken the time to deal with it. And I've got to do the thing. I've got a family. I've got my own life, and it would be irresponsible of me to become mayor of the city. I should do this instead. And I've never been prouder of somebody in a moment. Like, I remember the first thought was like, I hate that we will be deprived of that man being mayor for the next 8 years or whatever. But also, I can't imagine being prouder than working for a guy, a military vet in his late 30s, who was willing to go out in front of everyone and say, like, I I I have some issues and I have to go work on them. And anyone else that has these sort of things, it doesn't make you any less manly. It doesn't make you bad. You can hit pause on your life and go do this. No one thinks that they can. You actually can. You don't need money. You just need people that care about you, and you can go do this. And to this day, I can't think of just like the scale of how many people must have heard that and thought, I can do that too. Like, I've never felt such pride for somebody. I really hate that that's a person that absolutely should and could run for president someday, and that some piece of shit is going to be like, we can't give the nuke codes to a guy that once admitted he was suicidal. And I'm just like, if we're being honest, we all have.
Yeah.
Let's come on, man. He admitted that because he then was taking it on first. Like, I don't know. That's the biggest uphill battle I can imagine, and to win, I don't know. It's just amazing. So
we bought this place. I was married at the time, and when we moved from your neck of the woods over here in 2012. And it wasn't too terribly long after we were here, and one day there was a knock at the door, and it was him going fucking door to door, introducing himself. Holy shit. He was so rad just because he felt like a normal dude. And I think he was married and had kids. I don't recall, but
his wife is a business motivational speaker with several New York Times best-selling books. Their kids absolutely rule. His son is named True, so his name is True Candor. And whenever he shares stories about his kid, he calls them true stories. The level of dad joke on display here is just next. It's God tier. It's amazing to meet somebody that is the most down-to-earth normal dude you'll ever meet, and also like a goddamn superstar that's changing the world. Like the level of non-hubris involved in any of it is just so amazing.
Well, I shut the door and I was just frozen in my foyer there because I had long since turned off the political bandwidth channel in my brain.
Right.
And I don't care. It's for everybody else to figure out. I don't want to be involved. It's too upsetting.
Yeah.
If you know, if I have somebody that gives me the answers to the test, I'll go vote. And it like turned. It was like, and I was like, so there is still hope that we can run. And my ex has long admired him and had some kind of maybe Instagram DM interaction with his wife, and is always championing what amazing people those two are.
Yeah.
So he dropped out, and then what happened?
He went from the announcement, drove with his son to a model shop and bought like a model airplane, and went home and put that together with his son same day. It was just like immediately like, okay, here we go. It's work on me time. Took some time to just focus on himself and to work with the VA and with therapists. At one point, he was growing a beard out and asked me if he should get into stand-up. And I was like, I cannot imagine a worse thing for your mental health. I love that every door is open to you right now.
Balls.
But I got to tell you, if you want to not want to leave, that's not not the
you want to write the mental health ship, that's probably not the dock you want to get on the vessel from.
I mean, it is a good place to go out and grab a mic and be like, I'm real sad, and have people laugh. That was my shtick too.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't really work in the politics space. He works in the like actually doing things space, which is such a better use of his time. He works with a lot of veterans groups locally that they build tiny homes for veterans. He works with a lot of groups that are doing progressive things from Missouri. Like I think that the best use of Jason Candor was not in gridlock of being Secretary of State of Missouri or something. It was that man going out and like making change happen. And so I don't know. It all worked out better at the end of the day, and he's wildly happy, and him and his wife continue to be incredible.
Is this still home for them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they are here.
Man, I remember this moment in my 20s where, you know, I'm getting out of school as a junior after fifth hour to go to work in high school and getting consortium, getting credit for it. And then senior year, I'm done by lunch, and because you can do more, you can get more hours. And then it's like college, and then you know, I'm all this time I'm in food service. I'm in the hospitality industry, and I'm back of the house. I'm a
Notoriously great for mental health.
dishwasher, prep cook, line cook. Eventually, I'm managing kitchens. Eventually, I'm sous chefing and chefing. And I remember coming out for a lineup one day. 10:30. You have present your special. Tell the servers what it is, what you might be out of, and everybody. Front of the house manager makes sure their uniform. It's the last little thing before we open the doors. Mm-hmm. And I just remember looking around at all of these young faces, my age or younger, and feeling like everybody seems like they have it figured out. And I'm not an egotistical person. Okay.
Right.
I was never, I was decent academically until I discovered partying and girls, and then it was just like, what the fuck? I'm going to just be a C student or whatever. Not a good test taker. So there's plenty of people that are far more intelligent than I am wherever I go. Mm-hmm. But I just remember feeling like, is this it? This is adulthood? I'm going to work 70 hours a week in a hot kitchen on my feet and like drink myself to sleep every night and do basically zero things that are good for either physical or mental health. Mm-hmm. Like I hope that when these people are looking at me, it doesn't look like what it sounds like in here, because I would be terrified if I were them. And I just
that guy has none of this figured out. Yeah. We've got it all figured out. That guy has none of it figured out.
And I was like, I don't, it's cool that I was able to, what operation isn't going to take a kid and throw him in the dish pit and cool, got that box checked.
Right.
It's cool to like rise through the ranks and learn from some good people and develop management and leadership skills and so on and so forth. But I was like, I don't want to keep going in this. I don't want to like be an executive chef or own my own restaurant. I don't want this life at all. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, okay, it's kind of like the politics channel. It was like time to turn all that off and just make sure everybody thinks that you have it together. and sort of that combined with that undying energy as a young person, just come on, I just want to be big. I want to be a grown up. I don't want to have and then it's like, oh, this is adulthood. This is what I was in such a fucking hurry for. I mean, weird crossroads. I could speak for hours on end to the value of therapy, mm-hmm. And how literally every person should have some form of it in their lives. But it is weird, sort of, you touched on it already, the destigmatization that didn't happen or is maybe just still unraveling. I don't know.
So much of what you said, it's just like a checklist of things that we were raised into and other people will be raised into and the generation above us was raised into, that makes, until you see the matrix code, it's just impossible to break it. Because like you said, like even there, you're like, I'm not that intelligent because I don't do well on tests. It's not, in no world is that a measure of intelligence. You're looking around and you think everybody else there has it figured out. And if anyone in that room had the ability to be fragile and open with somebody else, everyone there could have said, oh, I also don't have this figured out. Like the destigmatization plays into that. And then there's just that thing that I think I've spent my entire life fighting to, and I'm making progress on it finally. But the idea that your entire life is defined by your job, that is your identity. And like, if you're not doing well at that and you're not rising in that and you're not putting everything too much all of the time into that, then like, who are you as a person? I think that was one of those things that I got to learn from Jason Kander. Like I have my dream job, but at the end of the day, I really try to separate myself as like, I am a person. Here's this thing I do well. And for most of my life, I would have immediately defined myself by like, this is what I do, and that is who I am. And to watch Jason Kander be like, who I am is a politician running in Kansas City, and then to choose to not be that, to go be a person later that same day and work on the person part. Like, I don't know, no ethical consumption under capitalism, but also like we're just all in the same trap, and it takes you having to step aside and talk to somebody outside of your bubble just to be like, am I the only one that feels this way? Like, no, we all do. Like, oh, okay. How do I fix that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And no one has a great answer. Everyone's got different ones, but like it's just it's an unbeatable set of pressures that always feel like there is a true finish line you can reach, and there never is. It's just a Wile E. Coyote painted hole on the side of a brick
just
wall.
Just keep giving your money to Acme. Part of getting this thing off the ground has played a role that I didn't expect in terms of unpacking the events, if you will, of my life and sort of putting them on the ledge and being able to like almost objectively look at them and be like, oh, that happened because of this, and I am this way because of these things, instead of just, not fair, or victim card, out the wazoo, and realizing that you are always you, but you're different versions of yourself in stages. And when you mentioned going to see that screenplay that on the screen, when I, dream job, if there was a way for me to write fiction and somebody just give me bags of money every time that would be the gig there. But in grad school, learning, okay, say it takes 18 months for you to write your novel or whatever it is, and then maybe you spend 2 years editing it. Learning that the editing is the hard part was wild and eye-opening. But then learning that the best, I should say, fiction writers will research for a year and a half or whatever the time frame is before the writing, which comes before the editing, and then you step into the world of publishing. And sort of looking at that, it's like by the time that book is in a reader's hand or on a bookshelf, the author could very well be an entirely different person than when the kernel of the idea first hit them and they started the research and then moved to the writing and moved to the editing. And just being like, Mark Twain's always an easy example. He wasn't always just the same dude across all the books that he wrote.
Right.
He's going through, or any author, you're progressing, evolving, changing. I mean, it's wild.
As is society, and especially right now in such an advanced way, like there's plenty of old stand-up of mine that I would like to erase from existence. Like, but equally, like I talk to stand-ups now, and sometimes stuff that you wrote a year ago has already aged badly because the culture is moving so quickly. Like, a year later, something that you said has culturally shifted to being a slur now, or has been, reframed in a way that the connotations, like right now, the word weird means something very different than it did 3 weeks ago.
Did you just make that up, or are you being serious?
No. The entire Democratic platform right now is calling out Republicans for their weird ideas, just being like what J.D. Vance is saying about people without kids not being patriots and stuff. That's weird. It's weird. And people are like, so the word weird right now, it has the connotation that it didn't have 3 weeks ago. And that's a pretty common descriptor of things. And you're just like, okay, that changes a lot. I don't know. It's a very difficult time to start something artistic and be like, this is a slice of who I am now. I hope that people like it and connect with it by the time it's in their hands in some form. Yeah, that is what it is. That's one of the reasons that like stand up and journalism are really like I have the idea right now. People will read it later today. The distribution system is so short, so like it's pretty hard for me to get it that wrong. So.
Right. So Western Kansas, Central Kansas, you said?
Central, Salina, Kansas.
Salina. Oh my God. It is the spot, as somebody who's done the KC to Denver drive more times than I actually could count. It's the spot that you can never seem to get to, regardless of which direction you're coming from. Like, you leave KC, Topeka comes pretty quick, and then it's Salina is like, 200 miles away still, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And that's not even the central point across. And then, you leave Denver, you hit Lyman, you hit the state line, and then Salina's like 300. It's like, what in the world?
I've never thought about it like this.
It's
You're
so
absolutely
wild.
right. It's always too far away.
It is. They should totally change the name of that town to It's Always Too Far Away. So, siblings?
Younger sister, Brooke Wilbur.
Okay. All right. Just a couple letters variation there.
She's one of the reasons I actually moved out here. She has lived in Kansas City for more than a decade. She ran Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Oh, wow.
I was very high up at United Way, and I'd see her at Christmas and be like, "What did you do this year?" And she's like, "Oh, I raised like $8 million for kids all by myself." And I'd be like, I was in a studio apartment in Los Angeles. I did a lot of cocaine and wrote a sitcom that no one's going to read. I think you're going to heaven, and I'm not sure I am.
In case I don't see you.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I want that. I want to do something that matters, and KC might be the place to do it.
Nice.
Also, I'd like to continue living.
Yeah.
KC seems like the place that might do that.
I got to share this just because that reminded me of it. It's kind of my new favorite thing at the moment. So Ted Danson and Woody Harrelson have a podcast, and I saw a clip, they had Conan on.
Perfect.
And they're rapping, and Ted says, Conan, can you give us any tips on what it's like when you have a real shitty guest? Because this has been awful for us. And so Conan laughs, and he says, when it comes down to it, when I had my show, I did about 4,000 hours of broadcasting. And oftentimes it's guest, musician, guest, but sometimes it's no musician. You have 3 in a row. And every once in a while, you'll get like this 7th lead from a thing that was on WB for 3 months that you've never heard of. And it's like this 19-year-old kid who has had 0 life experience, and so you're out there like it's Saz Bickler from the WB's You Know What, You Better Not. He plays Chiz. It says here, Saz, that you used to work at Chipotle, and he's like, thank God I had a funny sidekick and Andy, who would be like, don't get me started on Chipotle. And then the Saz is laughing and everybody applauds and the thing's over. And the producer goes, that went pretty well. You were pretty nervous about him. He's like, he didn't say a fucking thing. Check this. So, and then you got to like send him off. So he's like, all right, make sure you check out Saz Bickler on You Better Not. And so somebody went and made Saz Bickler official Instagram account and said, not cool, Conan. And then Team Coco or whoever was like, so sorry, blah, blah. And then you go to the page and they found a shot of Conan's set. They've created a You Better Not theme song with a WB logo. There's a picture of 4 people. I'm in tears. This Instagram account has like 7 posts. I'm in tears. I get to one, and there's a picture of 4 people in a Chipotle, and one's wearing a hat, and the caption says, "Remember the time at the Chipotle employee party when Zach blah blah?" And I was laughing so hard that I could barely see the words that I was typing, but I just typed, Zach was always a wily SOB. And the Saz Bickler official account liked that and replied, I still can't drink Mr. Pibb from the fountain to this day. And there's like 27 versions of those exchanges going on this fake account.
Perfect. Brilliant.
Okay, so younger sister Brooke is going to heaven. How did you know how your folks met?
They were both freshmen at KU.
Okay.
My dad's mother was in the hospital, and a random person who did not know her made her a pie and dropped it off at the hospital. That was my mother. And my dad's mother, who was in the hospital, was like, "You have to go out on a date with the woman that made me a pie." And my dad was like, "I don't know who that is. I'm not going to do that. This is the person that made you a pie. The fuck are you talking about?"
Right.
And went out on a date with her, and 6-ish months later, they were engaged. Yeah.
Wow. Were they, when you guys were younger, were they folks that put on music to listen to in the home?
My dad was a studio engineer in Salina, Kansas.
Okay.
His big thing, in addition to being in a number of rock bands, the way he paid the bills was he was a jingle writer. Back when every company needed not just the 15, 30, and minute long spots for the radio, but also really extended things for like their hold music, wanted full songs of stuff, wanted all these things where like jingle production was this entire industry that required some really strong songwriting, these hooks, just doing really hard work to help sell Zaslav Cement Mixing Corporation
Yeah.
and be like, "That's the Zaz." And then one day radio stations started saying, "Hey, if you want an ad with us, what if we just put like a terrible synth bed under it and had one of our DJs read some copy over it?" And the jingle industry was gone. So yeah, grew up in a house with a recording studio and a lot of reel to reel, and still have some mixing boards in our basement.
Whoa.
That, must weigh a metric ton. My dad and my mom were in a like sort of Blues Brothers cover band.
Seriously?
She played the B3, so my dad's stories are all about him and the boys having to lug those gigantic spinning B3 speakers up and down stairs to venues and stuff.
So do they have a record collection? Do they have CDs? What did they buy music or?
Oh yeah, I grew up in a house with all of that. We've been going through archives of the Pitch, and we found an article from like the month that CDs hit in a consumer market, and it is a pro-con list of why vinyl sounds better than CDs. And I was like, 3 decades later, I'm still writing that same story. That's amazing to me. So,
what does the archives look like?
Piles. We have a
paper?
nice room that's got some leather furniture in it at the office, and just tons of loose stacks of everything going back to 1980, and then a lot of bound versions, and we have a digital library of those. So yeah, it's
everything's digitized.
We're missing a lot of the 90s.
Okay.
Some of that got lost, but I believe like Casey Public Library might have a bunch of that somewhere. We're trying to get it all in one place where we can keep it accessible. Everything on our website goes back to like early 2000. That's when we got the setup digitally. So
okay.
It's really easy to find some really bad takes from the mid 2000s on there and be like, woof, there's a thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating. We have a lot of fun going back, and like our film editor, Abby, for our big 40th anniversary magazine, she went back and found like old 80s issues and read reviews that we wrote at the time of things like Jaws and Star Wars, and was like, how did this review hold up to how we consider the films now?
Right.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to go see what we were, and how much of it is still who we are. So
is it relatively organized in terms of, I think this was in April of 84, and you can go to the April of 84 spot and sort of root around, or is it clumsier than that? Or
it's a lot of loose piles that are like a foot tall, like how I stack books in my house.
Okay.
So some of them are easy to leaf through, and others you're like, that's the 83 pile. I don't know. There's every week there's something. Best of luck.
Do you happen to know how many predecessors you've had in the paper's organization history?
Something like 8 to 10 in terms of people when it was owned locally, when it's been on and off owned by publishing companies out of state. Sometimes they retain people, sometimes they ran things from somewhere else, but overwhelmingly, like there's 4 or 5 people I think we can point to
Okay.
as being in my position.
So when ownership has changed, there have been occasions where they come in and they clean house and start from scratch.
They almost always like retain somebody. There's a period where there have been a couple of times where it'll go under and somebody nationally will pick it up, and then a year or two later they'll be like, I don't think we want to run this anymore. It's happened a couple of times over the years, and you'll see the change. That's the year that suddenly we went from calling out politicians on their bullshit to being like, here's nothing but the best brunch spots. No negative criticisms whatsoever about anything. Just nothing that could scare an advertiser away. And thankfully, those are very few and far between.
Right. Generally speaking, do you think that folks that the advertising crew are hitting up, are they receptive? Are they warm? Do they get told to fuck off? Is it a mix? Do you know?
It's really fascinating. We recently did a readership survey. We do one every 2 years or so, and just get a really in-depth random sampling of people, our demographics, so on and so forth. And the group that did it this time works a lot with alt papers, and they prepped us ahead of time. They're like, we're going to get some real across-the-board reactions. You're going to want to hear all that feedback. It's going to matter, and some of it, I'm sure, will hurt your feelings. So just prepping you for that. And we were like, yeah, I know that we're divisive. Like, that's okay. And they came back to us after it was done, and they were like, we talked to so many people, and we've never seen this before. No one hated you.
Wow.
There was almost no negative feedback whatsoever, and I was like, I think you might be bad at your job. Have you seen our comment section? And they're like, no, we talked to those people, and even those people that like will get real mad at you, almost everyone across the spectrum understands why we need you here. They understand the value of what it is you do. Even if they get mad at some of the things, they're like, I'm glad that this is here. And like, I was like, oh, that's reaffirmed some of my faith in people. Later that day, I got like a lunatic email from somebody, and I was like, so they're still there. They know, but like, I think maybe under everything, you might still like me.
Right.
So I don't know. That was valuable. And so with that in mind, like, I think that when people reach out advertising wise, more often than not, even somebody that just wildly disagrees with our politics or our view on the world, including people that, like, decades ago, we wrote stories about how they were predatory or things like that. Everyone recognizes that the pitch is something that is
valuable,
trusted and respected, and that even if you've had disagreements in the past, it doesn't really do anyone any good to keep harboring those. Every once in a while, I'll meet somebody who's just still furious about something that somebody wrote in the 90s, and I was like, I wasn't around for that, but like, was it true? And more often than not, they're like, well, that doesn't really matter. It was hurtful. I was like, but was it accurate about your behavior? Because if so, like, I don't know. Being mad at the ghost of me isn't really. I was a child. I don't know.
Funny.
Yeah.
So mom and dad are definitely into music. I'm fascinated by this notion of the music we're sort of born into in our parents' homes, and then the pivot that we take to start walking down the path of carving out our own tastes. Not necessarily from your list. Is there an album that you first fell in love with, or maybe bought with your own money, or borrowed from a friend, that stands out from childhood?
I was a late bloomer with music. I really enjoyed all the music my parents played for me, like Pink Floyd, all this stuff. But like, I had no, like, my parents had tried to put me in guitar lessons and piano lessons, and I did fine at them, but like, I simply didn't care about music. It wasn't a part of anything. And then I hit 6th grade, and the first 3 CDs I bought were Beck's Odelay, Radiohead's OK Computer, and Chumbawamba's Tub Thumping. So 2 for 3 I don't know. 3 for 3. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the other one too now.
Have you seen the? It's old now, but a meme of husband stays home and wife goes out with the gals to a bar, and he gets access to the. It's a jukebox that has like an app that you can just.
Oh, touch tunes. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And so he just keeps playing Tub Thumping over and over and over again, and she texts and she's like, "How's everything?" And he's like, "Oh, I put the kids in gave them a bath, and one of them got knocked down, but he got up again." And then it goes on. There's like a series of 12 or 15 texts, and finally she goes, "Oh my God, is this fucking you playing the song over?" Anyway, did you know Odelay and OK Computer before you bought them?
No, they just come out. I think I'd heard where it's at on the radio. Maybe I feel like I saw Beck on the like Grammys performing that live, and I was like, I don't know what kind of music that is, but I want to do that. So
Do here in 2024, do we know what kind of music Beck makes? He's
I
all
don't
over.
know anymore. Just really finely crafted pop music now.
That's a good a descriptor as any. What about live music? Did you see shows as a young person?
I got to see my dad and mom open for a lot of bands coming through Salina, Kansas. So like I got to see them open for like Kansas and Foreigner and Foghat. I went to a Bon Jovi show in Wichita, and I was terrified as a kid of fireworks. My dad had to promise that there weren't going to be fireworks, and the lights went down for the start of the show, and fireworks went off.
Oh my God.
And I lost my mind, and they had to take me home. So
For real?
yeah, too scared of Bon Jovi. Was that a bad start to the rock and roll lifestyle? I don't know.
I have occasionally asked folks if there's a song or an artist or a band or whatever that if you hear them come on, you turn around and leave. And were I to ask myself that question, nothing makes my blood curl more than hearing 15 intoxicated women sing along to Living on a Prayer. It just makes me want to drive to a playground and start punching children in the throat. I mean, I fucking hate Bon Jovi.
I've had to pivot on karaoke because living in Los Angeles, karaoke wasn't fun because you'd go out to have a fun singing good time, and everyone else had like a recording contract or was aiming for one. So there was never bad karaoke. It was always a showcase for the next Adele to be like, here, I'm going to show off. And then I'd go up and try to do Bowie and be like, I'm just having fun. Okay, the rest of you, this is just an extension of marketing yourselves. So to be back in Kansas City where people get drunk and scream along to Margaritaville feels good.
Yeah,
Feels
yeah.
anything that would have grated me before, I'm now just appreciative that no one has perfect pitch.
Yeah.
Feels good, man.
Yeah. I've done a few episodes where we've explored entire discographies of artists. In fact, I've done a Beck one. What I want to do, and I haven't found the right person to do it with me yet, is a Bowie episode. But it's 27, I believe, records deep. How much of a Bowie scholar, if at all, are you?
I have the bootleg recordings of the test shows with Nine Inch Nails on vinyl. Yeah, I got a pretty deep Bowie love. I started Bowie with Earthling, which was the same time as also starting U2 with the Pop album.
Oh, wow.
So I just thought everyone was doing industrial, and that's what rock and roll was, and that really set me up for success.
Yeah. So how big are we talking vinyl collection for you? Are you dozens? Are you hundreds? Are you thousands?
We're in the thousands.
No
It's
shit.
a room at my house, and it's also part of my office is basically a storage unit for the rest of it. We listen to records a lot in
You and the wife.
office as we work in the newsroom, and We go to Records with Merit at least once a week. And
You and your wife or staff folks?
me and the staff,
Okay.
we grab a couple of albums to be like, this is the soundtrack for this week. Let's go spin these together.
So there are records that are yours that are in the pitch office,
yes,
and I trust they get handled with love and care. And
love and care.
Okay. So Records with Merit is your spot.
Yeah, they're both just they're family. They've always been family since I moved here.
Okay. Did you, just because you walked in one day as a customer, how did that relationship get off the ground?
When my wife and I moved to town, we moved to a place on 39th Street, and like day one, I walked down the street to the closest record shop, and I was like, "Hi, I just moved here. You might see a lot of me." And they both introduced themselves and seemed very invested. And the next time I came in, they both knew more about me than maybe my parents did. They
What?
were asking me about stuff. They were like, that person and his wife seem awesome, and like read everything I'd ever written
Oh,
online
damn.
and like knew what I was up to and was like, how's this thing working out? And I was like, oh, okay, so you're my parents now here in Kansas City. When my parents aren't in town, you're my parents. So,
So-
I don't know, just two of the people I'm closest to in the entire world.
That's awesome. Do you and your wife record shop together? Do you go separately? A mix of both?
Yeah, mostly me by myself, and she'll be surprised that I brought something home. I Records with Merit has more than once called my wife to be like, hey, he's about to check out with a fairly sizable financial order. Do you want us to stop this from happening or no?
Within earshot of you?
Yeah, we're family,
Okay,
but
okay.
they do recognize when is this a manic purchase, or does he really want to spend this much today?
Well, that was my next question. Is there a self-imposed budget that you guys have agreed upon, or is it just whatever you want to do, go do it? I support you.
One of the rare marriages that there are two separate checking accounts 10 years in.
Okay,
And,
okay.
We don't have to ever have that conversation.
Okay.
And that's fine.
Now, what about spinning records at home? Do you both pick? Is it always you choosing what you're going to listen to?
We both pick. Yeah, I like at the office, I think I would go insane if I was the sort of person that's like, I'm always choosing the music, mostly because a lot of what I listen to is not pleasant to listen to for some people. So I played the Flaming Lips a couple of years ago, and an intern at the time was like, what is this Kermit the Frog shit? And I was like, okay,
What record was
damn,
it?
Soft Bulletin.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, ouch, okay. I didn't know it would grate on you like that, but also fair criticism.
Now, how is it organized, your collection?
Alphabetical.
By artist? Last name?
Yeah, last name as well. I've got that IKEA shelf that everyone has. That's the big 25 unit one, and there'll never be a day that the OCD doesn't bother me that there's 26 letters and 25 slots on that. And
I
I'm
feel
just
you.
like,
Damn you, IKEA.
yeah.
Banish you to Salina.
Tried to put a box on top of it, but that then meant that if A was up there, then everything started with B, and I'm like, this is worse. This is so much worse.
Oh my God.
As if I have more than 4 Z albums, like it would be fine. I can put all the last letters together on a shelf, but I don't, and that's.
I just watched High Fidelity for the first time in my life,
Oh my God!
like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Autobiographical.
Yeah. Would you ever?
God no.
Yeah.
God, no.
I mean, like if it's not alphabetical, I'm losing my mind. Like that's anyway. Well, thank you again for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing a list with me. I just roll through them chronologically,
Cool.
release-wise. So we do start with Odelay from 96, which is 5th of 13 tracks, 54 minutes. Sammy Sanchez was kind enough to do the Beck discography episode with me, episode number 88. Fascinating collection of albums. You saw him do, or you heard where it's at? What was the intro?
Yeah, where it's at on the Grammy Awards live. Yeah.
And so this is your first Beck record.
Yeah, and first album. So
Okay, yeah.
is,
Two or three of three.
Yeah,
if you,
3 of 3 now.
yeah. Are there that Chumbawamba record? It's pretty good.
I mean, it's a really well produced album, but also Chumbawamba as an anarchist collective has always made sure that everyone in the band and the entire crew, everyone is paid equally in their orbit, from the lead singer down to the guy that works the t-shirt stand. And like the dedication to have been doing that for decades, and that sort of equality, I think is like fucking, in an era where we are dealing with like venues taking 30% of the cut of merch all of a sudden. What? And like the cost of
locally that you see that.
It's a national issue. Venues just started imposing that on people last year, and a lot of artists have started canceling tours because of that.
I'm coming to play at your show, and in my car, I've brought my gear, my equipment, and my merch.
And your own person to sell the merch, and there's just a percentage the venue's going to take. They just started springing it on people, and it's built into some contracts with some of the major tour groups now. It started in Europe, and people just started being like, hey, let me stop this song and just remind you, don't buy a fucking t-shirt here. Don't buy anything. Fuck this place. We will not be touring anymore. Yeah, I don't know. Between Ticketmaster's stranglehold on stuff, the venues that are now taking a chunk of these things, and blaming the fact that Gen Z doesn't like drink anymore, and that's eating in the bars. Like, there's everything right now has the feel of well, people aren't buying houses because of avocado toast, and now that it's spread to the music industry, I feel like I'm losing my fucking mind.
Yeah,
so,
you're making me feel fucking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that the Black Keys canceled their tour? What do you have any? I didn't read. There was a rumor that they were gonna cancel because maybe it was low ticket sales, and then I think it came out that it was they needed to part ways with their management. Or do you know anything about that?
The Black Keys ones comes down to like, yeah, they were booked at venues that were too big for right now. Like, everyone needs to go down a size on venue, because if you're not selling something out, you are hemorrhaging money, which is great for a lot of mid-sized venues locally. Like, the number of like Black Flag playing Rhino here in town is one of those that's like, okay. And some of the acts that are coming through, like Record Bar and stuff, I'm just stunned. I'm like, this is awesome. This is exactly why I moved to Kansas City. Like, one of my first days in Kansas City, Death from Above 1979 was coming through town. The last time I'd seen them, I'd driven down to San Diego and paid stadium ticket prices to see them as third opener for Incubus.
Wow.
And I got to town for a Record Bar, and they were working their own merch table. And I pulled up a chair near the front of the stage and just sat and watched, because there were so few people there, and my ticket was something like $12. And I was like, Chewy, we're home. This is like my big fear about moving here, because I'm like a guy that lives at concerts 3 or 4 nights a week.
Seriously, even now.
And like, I was like, I certainly hope that everyone I love will be coming through Kansas City, and they are, and it costs nothing, and it's much smaller venues, and I just forever delight in that. One of the reasons I took the pitch job is I get concert tickets for free, so as low as journalism pays, I'm like, I'm thinking of the net gain here of not paying for tickets anymore, and that's maybe worth more than the salary.
Yeah. Favorite venues around town, or do you mind?
Oh, I love them all. I live at Record Bar plenty. Truman is great. Starlight's amazing. Rhino, I love that.
I don't know if I know that one.
It's North KC.
Okay.
Okay. It's on Armour. It's changed sizes a little bit lately and has had to really fight to keep its spot there, but wonderful, wonderful venue, run by Ben Wendt, who lead singer of the Way Back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so real roots driven thing. Yeah, I don't know. We just have so many cool places to see gigs at this point. Madrid, always awesome. Everything that happens at Uptown, I'm just thrilled to be there for.
So these tickets that come with the gig. How many venues does that include?
Most everything in town. I also love that I get to go see a lot of stage theater as part of being reviewing press for that. Being the only print publication and basically the only publication left in town that covers live concerts, and definitely the only ones left that cover live theater. It feels pretty good to be out there. Like none of it's ever just like it's free and I'm here to go. It's always like I'm going to write about this so that others can experience it, so that I can help platform bands. And
Amen.
yeah, it feels good. It feels good. I didn't think in moving here that it was going to feel just as good to be involved in local theater as it did to be in local music stuff. But the number of actors, writers, and directors in local theater that I would go to fucking bat for any day of the week, that I will show up to see anything they touch. I don't know. We've got a stunningly strong scene here, and I hope more people take advantage of that.
Now, do you get a +1? Can you bring the wife to these gigs? Or?
She's also a theater reviewer, so yeah, we go hand in hand. It's a fun power couple with our little notebooks back in the corner.
I got on the road. What's today? Thursday at 5 to go to Columbia to meet up with a lady friend who's in St. Louis, and we. Sometime.
Yeah, sure.
And I 435 north to 70 east, and the stadium traffic was it was insane. And then I got around it, and I thought I was in the clear, and then I hit another patch of it in a different artery of the whole mix there, and I was like, what in the absolute fuck? And I'm in standstill traffic, and I just Googled the Royals. They're in Detroit. I'm like, it's not football season. There must be a show. And then I get out of that, and I see standstill across all the lanes westbound. And I'm like, what in the absolute fuck? Morgan Wallen did 2 nights. Are you familiar with this cat?
I am.
Okay, did you go? Do you go to big shit like that too?
Oh yeah, love big shit.
Okay.
And love Olivia Rodrigo, love anything coming through T-Mobile, love the stadium stuff. Yeah, all the venues rule, and I'm so glad that we have so goddamn many of them.
I when I finally figured out what it was, I was like, oh, I remember actually Brooke Kafka, who does she gigs with Dames of the Dead and a few other she does all these gigs in addition to doing rigging for shows at venues, and I remember she had posted a lot of you have asked if there's ever a need where we're short on bodies to make a show happen. A lot of you have hit me up on that. Here it is. Excuse me, we're short Thursday and Friday for Morgan Wallen. I saw it, didn't think anything. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I wasn't doing something, but so then I see I'm like, what in the abs? Who the fuck is this? And it's he won The Voice in season 6 or some shit like that, and I was like, it felt Taylor Swiftian, the amount of traffic that was in 3 different ways. Do you put on country music ever? Do you know?
Love country music. I have no further thoughts on Morgan Wallen.
Okay, fair enough. I was just stunned. I was expecting something because it's rush hour-ish and whatnot. But then I was like, oh, the Royals are in town. It's not like there must be a show. And then I was like, and then I got there and I told her, and she was like, oh yeah. And she pulled up Facebook friends in St. Louis that came. I was like, good Lord, I missed the boat on this business. But
sold out T-Mobile like in the first 10 minutes last time he was through, so like, yeah, stadium time.
Wow.
That's also one of those that it's like the entire region is driving out for that. Like, yeah, a country Garth Brooks just has to play one state to get all 4 states around. Like,
yeah.
That's why he can do 20 dates in a row in Wichita, Kansas.
Right.
They will, if you build it, they will come.
So I love the concept of the album. And I know we were getting some in the 60s, but really the 70s was kind of the heyday.
Right.
Double albums, and it just, all that goes into making a record, and band members having to get along, and money having to be right, and laying down the tracks, and choosing which tracks are going to make it, and what is the sequence, and what's the album art, and the liner, the whole thing is just, I just love it. And I think there's a big swath of people that have never known that, and maybe never will, because everything's available digitally.
Right.
So we're in, and I don't mind this particular terminology, but oftentimes folks will use, this is a no skips album for me.
Right.
Because this is how they're listening to it.
Right.
Is Odelay no skips for you?
Oh, 1000%.
Okay. So I believe his discography is 17 deep. How deep have you gone? Are you familiar with all of them? Did you become a Beck fan because of this?
Yeah, I've definitely got everything there, including some remix albums on vinyl and one live thing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I got my Becks, my Block Parties, and my Bowies, and my Batman soundtracks. My B section is fairly heavy.
Nice. Well, so that was 96, and then Cursives, the ugly organ from 2003.
Hell yeah.
4th of 10 for them. In fact, it looks like there's something coming this year. 12 tracks, 40 minutes. Indie.
I already have my tickets for their first show in Omaha with the new tour. So
okay.
Yeah.
So they're from Omaha. Indie rock from Omaha, described as emo and post-hardcore. I'm not sure, but I think I struggle with all of the post portions of the genreification of the art of music. And I remember studying literature as an undergrad, and this modernism, and then all of a sudden it's postmodern, and that was confusing to me. But then I learned that modernism kind of maybe coincided with World War I, and then postmodernism was maybe after World War II. I was like, okay, my dumb brain, I can understand that now. But if you open up the list of genres,
you can hear R&B or country in your head. If I say post-punk to you, no one has any idea what that sound is. And post-punk started during punk, and punk is still around. So, like,
thank you.
There's no real...
Thank you. God, now I feel a tick less crazy. I mean, so who are these guys, and why is this record important to you?
Cursive's a Omaha rock band, and first couple albums, fine. It's got some screamy sort of rock, early emo to it. And then they do an album that's a concept album about the lead singer's divorce.
Oh wow!
And it's pretty brutal. And it's while they're doing that he's sort of like, hey, what if I think the best thing this band does is my lyrics, and people can't always understand what I'm saying. What if I did the pivot from screaming to actually singing about things? And this is a concept album about how difficult it is to make art, how much it asks of you, how much it demands that you bleed on stage for the love and affection of others, and what that takes out of a person, what you give up in the process of touring. And it also coincides with them adding a cello player to the band. So it's in the 30-minute range here in terms of albums. It's a very short concept album, all things considered, with a number of little interludes.
Right.
But like every single line of every lyric here is just something that not only will I scream whenever it's playing, but I will actively think about throughout my day sometimes.
Wow.
It's bitter as fuck. It's clever as hell. Like, it's one of those things that's... this is the closest rock music has ever had to peak dark comedy. Every line is incredibly funny. It also sucks. It's also just turning a blade infinitely. So, yeah, just one of the most fun albums of all time for me. Just a perfect record.
You're insanely articulate.
Oh no.
And you know, it's not just the word selection, but it's the output. I mean, I'm doing it right this second. Like I struggle to find the word, or I have the word and my brain won't push it out of my mouth. Have you gotten this feedback often across your days as a intellectual functioning adult? I mean,
I, it comes from just doing what you do, which is podcasting at some point. Just like that question about Conan and what to do, you know what I I think a chunk of that is probably by nature of just it's helped by the career in journalism because sometimes you're like, I've got a band or I've got a politician, and this call is going to cut off at the 12-minute mark. I need to ask everything I've ever wanted to ask this person and force them to give real full answers where needed. So you talk faster, a little more like Gilmore Girls, and you get to the point faster.
right.
So.
So you have podcasted?
Yeah, I had over a dozen at one point in Los
Different
Angeles.
podcasts?
Yeah,
Holy shit.
Los Angeles in the comedy scene was a great time to be like, hey, you know, it'd be funny is if somebody did this, and then you're like, let's just go do that, and that's how you wind up doing a podcast where you watch every episode of Doctor Who from the very beginning, and you get to the 80s before you realize I don't fucking like Doctor Who. Why have I done this every week for 3 years?
So are you solo in all 12?
No, I used to have a lot of co-hosts and stuff like that. I have one at this point called Caring Into the Void. I've got a couple of great co-hosts that are in the...
That it is currently, it exists right now?
It exists right now. It's very bite-sized episodes. We both tell each other about a weird thing from history, and we do a little bit of flash fiction around it that's meant to be sort of darkly positive. It's a lot of...
Flash fiction?
Yeah, just... sort of threatening inspirational talks around very Lovecraftian themes. So
okay,
and no episode longer than 20 minutes. It's just supposed to be something fun and funny, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So
who's your co-host?
I've had a couple. We're figuring out who's doing it next right now. So on a little bit of a break.
Okay, how deep are we talking episode wise?
3 years worth.
No shit.
Yeah,
dropping weekly.
Used to be weekly. Yeah, it's been a busy time for a lot of us lately, so nothing really in the last couple of months, but we'll be back to it soon.
Is that the longest lasting one that you've ever done, or was there one that went long?
I did one called Brock Party for 8
like
years.
That. 8 years.
That was weekly. Yeah.
Were you solo for that?
Me, a couple of friends co-hosting, and then guest coming over, usually from the comedy world or from the film world. That was a Los Angeles-based thing.
Yeah. And have these all been audio only?
Yeah.
And did you have to, as you're doing these, did you ever handle the production? Did you have to...
Did all the editing.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Learning curves for those projects? I mean, when you... launch this thing, you're like, oh shit, I got to figure out how to...
Came up in a recording studio family. It's always been,
yeah. Nice. Well, next we go to 2004. You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. Death from Above, 1979. Excuse me. First of 4, 11 tracks, 35 minutes. We've gone from LA to Omaha to Toronto. How did this outfit land in your lap, and why did this one earn a spot on your list? I know you mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but
2 guys, one playing bass, the other playing drums. Drummer as singer is always fun for me, but just the absolute pen cap meth rock of this thing. If Beck is the starting point, this is the natural extension of always loving songs where when they're talking about dancing, they're really talking about fucking. And when you're talking about fucking, they're really talking about dancing. This is just one of those albums that start to finish is just a Goliath wall of sound. And that the band almost immediately afterwards broke up in the style of Everybody Like at the Drive-In and stuff. You get the one great foundational album and then they're gone. They've reunited since and have some great albums, but the makeup of it is... I don't know, just it's 35 minutes that just does not stop. They do not do ballads. They do not sing about love. It is just one brutal, really distorted to hell dance album. It's very much a meshing of a drummer who comes from like metal rock and a bass player who comes from like doing dance synth music, like a Daft Punky sort of thing, and somewhere betwixt the two, just the perfect dance rock album. So yeah, this is.
And sorry, and how did you? I've never heard of these cats before. How did you discover them?
They were on Vice Records back when Vice was a thing, and I think I found them in a Virgin record store in Chicago. Went back when they had CDs that you could put the headphones on and try the sample. And the first song, I was like, I think maybe the headphones are turned up too high, and that's what's happening here. And I looked at it, and the headphones were at like 2.5 or 3, and I was like, oh, that's the loudest fucking thing I've ever heard. I need to put that in my headphones and do significant damage to my brain immediately. So,
And did you?
yes.
Nice. Well, fantastic collection. I appreciate you sharing it with me. I usually hammer folks with a series of goofy questions to wrap, and then we'll get you out of here.
Okay.
So first is lunch with anyone, dead or alive. Who are you choosing and why?
Jason Kander.
Ah, yes.
I get to have that lunch and that dinner with some frequency with him and the family, but I don't know. I'm at the point in my life where there is the line drawn for friends and acquaintances between people that will take up my entire social battery and people that will not. People that I can just hang out with, and I will not get in the car later and be like, boy, am I tired. And Jason Kander not only doesn't take up my social battery, but I always leave being like, I need to be a better person. What the fuck was that?
Did he charge it a little bit?
Yeah. Do I feel? Have I cured my cold? Did my broken ankle just heal? Maybe. Yeah.
So, as somebody who's experienced some of the things that you've experienced, what does the fact that Mental Health Awareness Month exists mean for you? Does it mean anything? Is it valuable? Is it silly?
I think it's fucking stupid to have the idea of like all months are weird to me.
Yeah.
We don't publish a Pride issue of The Pitch because we cover queer culture all of the time. One of my co-editors grew up in Lawrence, and the first and only place that she was able to find people that looked and sounded like her was in the pages of The Pitch. And the idea of being like, Black History Month, same thing. It's like if you're an organization or a publication that is going out of your way to be like, and now we're doing AAPI Heritage, we'll actually write these stories now. It means you're not doing it the rest of the fucking year. You're not actually doing the work. And I find things like that so performative. Corporate pride, where Lockheed Martin has their like pride merch out there or whatever. I'm just like, this is not this is not for anyone. It's not for you. No one. So
does this one in particular though do anything in that arc of destigmatizing? Does it shine a light on some folks that maybe are in the dark or
I'm talking shit because for me and my circle and for my publication, mental health is always at the forefront. For everybody else that functions in that way, I am glad that it exists, because if you are at a more standard corporate publication, and this is the one time of the year that you're going to go out of your way to actually like interview therapists or talk about local resources for those that are struggling with this, or you know, shine a light on these sort of things. If this is what it takes for you to do that, then awesome. Like
fair.
It is not hurting the cause.
Right.
It is just wild that it only matters to some people some of the time. And I don't know. If I only thought about trying to deal with my depression in September's and no other month, I wouldn't fucking be here. So
right?
That's
right?
wild to me.
Yeah, you have a little October 5th, and you're like, well, 12 point or 11.85 months to get through, and then I can.
Look, the number of press releases I get that say, like, it's National Pet Day, you should do a story about us. And I'm like, it's fucking National Pet Day 3 times a month, apparently. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay. You're given the ability to visit your past self at any age of your choosing. What age are you choosing, and what are you saying?
Probably 18, probably the day I move into the dorm, and probably don't start drinking. We'll start there. That's would if I could alter the timeline. That's the one I'd choose. Hadn't had a drink until I moved into college, and then didn't stop for quite some time. So
Where was college?
Northwestern Chicago.
Oh yeah. So no, your high school circles in Salina, people weren't drinking then, or some were.
They were, but I was a good kid. So
okay, fair enough.
And then somebody put a Goldschlager in my hand, and I drank it all in one night and broke some furniture. And I was like, let's keep chasing that. Let's do that for another couple decades. See how it treats us.
They make lots of furniture out there in the world. Just bring it to me, and I'll break it.
Exactly.
You recall that at one time there was a television program called Fear Factor?
1,000%.
What would be the absolute worst Fear Factor challenge for Brock Wilbur?
In general, roller coasters.
Okay.
As a 6'7" guy, not only have roller coasters never been my friend, but the dangers to a taller person on some roller coasters that people don't know about until a tall person rides it. I don't know. It's always been not only a fear but a genuine threat. Everything else that once bothered me overcame my fireworks thing.
Okay.
What
was the magic elixir to that?
Just not being a baby anymore.
Okay. I think I saw the 6'7" thing and was like, that can't be right. And then I opened the front door and I was like, yep, it sure was. Please complete this. The world would immediately become a better place in which to live if only
we taught media literacy in public schools.
Media literacy.
The ability to read something and understand what is bullshit and what is not.
Is that always black and white for readers across the board?
It doesn't have to be black and white, but the understanding of where an idea is started, why somebody is sharing it with you, and what is being expected of you of that. Context. The idea of context is something that has completely fallen off, and so many of us are not immune from that because certainly your upbringing brings with it so many things that are like, hey, this is the context of how you should believe and how you should interact with the world, and few people ever rethink that. But in a modern era where everyone can just hit the share button or without reading the article and can be very, very angry about something that has never happened and never will happen. Media literacy would fix a lot of things. It would repair a lot of relationships. It would fix a lot, and it would make my life a lot easier.
Well said.
Yeah.
Authory.com/Brock Wilbur. Plus at Brock Wilbur on Instagram, and also at Brock Wilbur on Twitter. Mm-hmm. You have a muck rack, a LinkedIn. Is there anything you'd hoped we'd cover that we didn't?
Don't go to any of those places.
Oh, my bad.
Who knows how much longer I'll even be on any of them? But
okay.
Thepitchkc.com and the pitch on you already plugged our Instagram as being a wonderful way of and. I adore what Sarah does there, because sometimes in those summaries that are written about the stories, she will rewrite it and I will be like, this is a different story that conveys all the same information but has been written in such an approachable, fantastic way. I'm just like, it's nice to do double versions of journalism, to do the digest in a way that maintains all the enthusiasm and cuts to the core of it. As somebody who grew up in a house with the little bathroom books that they used to have, where they're like, here's the 2-page version of Little Women. Like, yeah, I don't know. Between that and Animaniacs, a lot of my early pop culture was references only. So,
I didn't mean to gloss over Postal. Do you want to speak on that?
me and Nathan Rabin, who was used to run the Onion AV Club for 2 decades, who had always been my writing hero, we combined to write a book for the Boss Fight book series. Each book in that series is about a different video game written by a different author and done in whatever style they want. Some things are all over the place. Mostly it's people writing about their favorite video game and why it mattered to them. We wrote about a game that fucking sucks. We wrote about a game that came out right before Columbine.
Oh, boy.
Where you are just a guy who goes postal.
Oh, no.
Where you just shoot a lot of people. And then after Columbine, it, like Marilyn Manson, became the first sort of round of like, this is what we're blaming instead of guns. Rap music, Marilyn Manson,
the Judas
Doom, and
Priest
Postal.
stuff.
Yeah, the sort of 90s satanic panic that we never recovered from, and it's really a deep dive into this game is nothing, and it really is nothing in terms of trying to blame it for gun violence, and the fact that politicians will still single it out decades after people stopped playing it, and you're just like, right, you remember NWA, you remember Ice Cube, you remember Marilyn Manson and Postal. So it's sort of a treatise on like the impact of media on changing people, on like, does a video game make you violent?
Right.
And it's like, it would be very hard to think that this is what did it. So
right. But it's available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon. I think you can find it over at Mills Records as well. They have a whole set of them there. So
cool.
Yeah.
Family. Well, when we were walking in, you were touching on the fact that news never stops, and you're just when you get it, and then it pivots and looks a different way. To me, that tells me that you've got a relatively full plate. And I really appreciate you making some time for me. And, it's something to DM a perfect stranger and ask basically a favor. And you've been kind and polite, and I can't thank you enough. And
it's been too long since a stranger DM'd me and was like, would you come to my basement? And I was like, I have no further questions. I will see you there. Can I bring refreshments?
Right. Well, again, your team at the pitch, the existence of the pitch. I know that compliments don't pay mortgages, but man, you guys are doing great stuff, and I'm so the writer, reader, appreciator of arts that has kind of always been somewhere in me is so thankful that it is still alive, and I just wanted to throw props to you and everybody that makes it happen.
On behalf of Sarah and Joe and Andrew and Jason and the rest of the squad.
Even the guys with the vans,
Yeah, the guys with the vans.
People that touch the shipping containers with the paper coming over from China, all of them.
Our absolute lunatic designer, Cassandra, that wants to make everything into a slime font. Yeah, we've just got a team that never really stops. Yeah, on behalf of all of them, thank you so much for, again, reading, because without that, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah, not at all. Well, thanks again for the time. I appreciate it. It was very nice to meet you, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.